That commercial, the time to make the donuts come out right at the right time in my professional career where I could resonate with that one beautifully. What about you
Oh
guys?
yeah, yep. That's a standard line in the airline industry in the morning. Time to make the donuts. And it's funny as the younger guys come on, they're like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I got into law enforcement thinking, oh man, I'm gonna get free donuts for the next 20 years. And they went to bagels, and I was like, oh,
Damn it.
come on,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. It's not the same thing.
Well,
Forget
life's not
altruism.
fair.
So,
Well, it's not fair, Dr. Fuller.
Joy of my life.
yep.
Well, we got my brother's a probation officer. One of his buddies was involved in this police officer grappling club, and they did this thing called a wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
like to play a wrestling
Yeah.
and wrestling.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway, so we set up a little fight club. I got the mats out yesterday, and about an hour and a half, we beat the crap out of each other. I absolutely loved it. So
Nice.
I'm feeling invigorated this morning.
Now I'm
Awesome.
on 1600 milligrams of Motrin, but I feel great.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So a low dose.
Right? Yes.
Who we got on this morning, fellas?
I see so far we have Will Rhodes on. Coin number. Hold on. Let's just pretend
we
I
go.
need these. 2269. I should have that memorized by now.
Mm-hmm.
So what's this coin number thing, brother?
Funny you should ask, sir. If you want to become a member of the American Warrior Society and get access to the training vault and all that it has to offer you in terms of firearms, fitness, combatives, medical, less lethal, rifle, handgun, shotgun, the whole gamut, edge weapons, and a lot of stuff I'm forgetting, click the links in today's show notes. 14-day free test drive on Will and Dr. Fuller. And it's going to keep you and your family safer. So there you go.
I see Alan Kelly's on, who is looking forward to the return of Mopar to NASCAR. I've been messaging about that. So looking forward to that as well. Their commercials have rocked. When was the last time you saw a CEO of a company come out and go, "We screwed up," in a commercial?
Mm.
When they pulled the Hemi out of the Dodge lineup, everybody was like, "I'm not buying a Dodge again," because know your target audience, right?
Exactly.
And the new CEO came out in a press conference and said, "Yep, we screwed up. Hemi's back."
Thank God.
So a little accountability.
Well, it's like
by
the
the way,
Ford
he's-
trying to get rid of they're wanting to get rid of the V8 and just go
Mhm.
to the F-150s, just make them all V6 with the little aluminum engine up.
Yeah,
Wow.
and the twin turbos and all that. Yeah, I'm old school. There's no replacement for displacement.
Amen, brother.
Oh, you muted there, Dr. Fuller.
You're muted, Dr. Fuller.
I muted myself. I do some of my best work that way. Rich, what did you end up replacing your destroyed truck with?
Another F-150 V8, but again, trying to find the V8, trying to find an F-150 V8 was not easy.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's a V6 with the, I don't know, it's a turbo or whatever they call it on there.
Yeah.
Does it
Yeah,
turn
you
itself off when you go to stoplights?
It does not. It's old enough it doesn't do that.
Thank God. Can't stand that.
Mine does, but I found the $100 thing. I got to pull half the dash off, but I put it in there, and it'll never do it again. That's gonna be $100 and 2 hours of work well done.
Well spent. Yeah.
We have a
All
Honda
right.
Pilot also that does that. It does turn off. It's kind of annoying.
It is incredibly annoying. Y'all eat your heart out, everybody that's watching this morning. That's right. Don't adjust your screens, ladies and gentlemen. I am wearing a Horus Group shirt.
Oh,
Eat your heart out, Will Wood.
oh my
Only
god.
nation. Yeah,
That's
baby.
it. I'm out of here.
Need to get you a cup that says that.
Ooh, look at that.
Ooh, look at you. So
All right, Will, what is this
Right.
thing, man? This fear and greed.
yeah, well, that's our standard starter course, Fear Greed Index. 65 right now. It's been ticking up. As the trade stuff settles down. Surprisingly enough, I was just reading last night that it looks like China will be the first trade deal instead of a lot of these other countries. Everybody was kind of figuring China would be last. They'd wait to see what everybody else does. If we come up with a trade deal with China, it can't get worse than it was. So more so than whatever the specifics of the trade deal are, just the fact that there is a deal and things can quote unquote go back to normal will settle the markets considerably. But what is interesting here below that, this is leading economic indicators. This is gosh darn it, I can't remember which site I got this off of. It's a government site. So the leading economic indicator there is the bluish line, teal, if you will.
Mhm.
And you'll notice the leading indicators, which typically lead the economy by about 6 months, has been going down for about 6 months. Drastically here. It's really been going downward in general since 2021. Obviously, you can't put too much stock into this as far as day to day, even month to month, because it's been going down for a while. Now, down doesn't mean negative. It can be just less positive too. Okay. So this is something to keep an eye on. You will notice every time the teal line crosses the black line there, which is current economic conditions, it has preceded a recession by some period of time. Now, I'm not sure we'll ever have another recession if they can keep printing enough money. And by that, I shouldn't say printing money. If the Congress can keep running a large enough deficit and have people still buy the treasury bonds, I'm not sure we'll never ever have another recession.
Yeah, they don't want that for some reasons. Some of that stuff's healthy. I don't understand it.
Yeah, exactly. It is. And but we saw that under Biden. Not being political, it just is what it is. When you run at 6% deficits and pumping that money out of the economy is going to grow. So, and we're seeing more and more the disconnect between the stock market and the economy. They're not the same thing anyway, but we're seeing even more disconnect. Keep pumping more money into the system, stock market's going to go up. Take a look at the chart of the Venezuelan stock market. It's done really well. But it's because they printed a whole lot of money and it goes somewhere and it went into their stock market. It's the proverbial hockey stick. I just wouldn't want to live there.
No.
So
looks like John Marquez, the CEO of Precision Holsters, just liked the show. So
awesome.
Glad to have you on this morning, John.
Yeah, excellent. Good to see you.
Oh, how did this get in there?
Oh,
the
my
high-risk
goodness.
environment course this fall in beautiful East Tennessee. Come train with us. I got links in today's show notes if you want to sign up. You can read Justin Carroll's article he has put out on what we're going to be covering. So if you've ever wanted to have an opportunity to train with a great group of guys, I encourage you to take a check out the links and come down and train with us. It's going to be a week. Dr. Fuller is going to be there. Not sure if Mr. Will Wood will make an appearance, but it's going to be a good time.
Now, sure, got to look at the calendar and see if it'll fit in.
17th to the 21st of November. So yeah, check your calendars, folks, and we'll hopefully see you there.
All right. This one piqued my interest because I have long advocated for investing in Mexico. Maybe do some digging here. Mexico Central Bank slashes their growth forecast, citing significant weakness. So some out there are painting that as a leading indicator for the U.S. economy because so much of our manufacturing, speaking of your Fords, is done in Mexico. And so is this a leading indicator of U.S. manufacturing? Maybe. Don't know for sure. Some are also painted as a potential catalyst for increased pressure on the border. Now, if you keep the border shut down, there won't really be a lot of pressure. But if the economy worsens in Mexico, those people are going to go looking for work, looking for ways to support their families. So that's a possibility. The one that really got me thinking, though, is this an opening for China to shift production in such a way to avoid tariffs? You know, if you could have a subcontractor, subsidiary, fill in the blanks, whatever you want, of a Chinese company manufacturing in Mexico and then trucking it across the border, the logistics chain gets easier. It helps Mexico out and gets around the tariffs, which, of course, that's one of the downsides of tariffs is there's always a way around. I mean, people running these companies aren't stupid. So it got me doing a little more digging into this. So keep an eye on those three things. Either way, China will be shifting more to Mexico just to gain a more favorable status because Mexico and Canada both have better trade relations with the U.S. than China do. Although Canada's apparently angered Trump somehow. I don't know. He cut off those talks. I don't know. Who knows what they did? So, but I did see
Canadians. What do you mean to?
Well,
Canada.
Yeah. But I did see this morning that they backed off some digital services thing. I don't know. It's all a big game. It's all a big negotiation.
It says something a lot about the people running these companies, that rather than pressure the Chinese government to fix relationships with the United States, we'll just shift our manufacturing to other countries. We'll push them across the Pacific Ocean. Apparently that's easier and cheaper than fixing the Chinese government's relationship with the United States.
Yeah. Yep. And it's it's they're looking for the path of least resistance. And of course, being the Chinese, they're playing the long game. If they can get a foothold in Mexico, oh yeah, here's a few loans as well to help with your oil industry, and then we can see where that goes long term.
Every drug dealer knows the first one's free, right?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah,
yep.
right.
And my dealer sells these thing called Thin Mints. So
I was going to say car engines, but yeah, Thin Mint's probably
yeah, Thin Mints are that's the drug of choice right there. So this is Mexican GDP growth year over year, going back to 2022 by quarter. And if we look at it, 2025, first quarter 2025, their economy grew 0.2%, which is better because we finally got the third revision of the U.S. GDP, which is down 0.5% in the first quarter. And there's some gamesmanship within that with the tariff and trade deal fears. But if we look back, the Mexican GDP never really knocks it out of the park. I mean, if we go back to 2022, you're looking at 1.5% year over year, and they're in the first quarter of 2022. That's pretty pathetic. Here in the U.S., we would call a thriving economy a 3% growth. So, we never really see big numbers. If you go to the next slide, we'll put in some more historical context here. The 1.5 we just looked at was the one with the red arrow to it now. Take out COVID for the standard COVID reasons. Mexican economy never really grows much to speak of at all. So I don't think it's really time to hit the panic button on Mexico. It's worth half what you're paying for, but I'm still keeping my position in Mexico there. I don't think you probably can hear some fear mongering about it out there. I really think it's a big nothing burger. They chug along. They'll build the trucks. They'll do the low quality manufacturing for the most part for other things. Did I just call Ford low quality? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did.
Thank you for joining us today, Will.
Seems to be a speaker problem with Will.
There we go. It looks better already.
Now, I think it's important to note. Wow, that was harsh. It's important to note, though, that this chart doesn't show a couple of pillars of the Mexican economy. One being narco production, and two being exported labor. Right? I mean, how much money comes out of the U.S. from people making money here, sending it back down there?
Yes.
So yeah, they're legitimate.
Yep.
Income is really low.
And I cannot identify that number for you, sir. However, one of Trump's proposals, maybe even been enacted, was the remittance tax.
Yeah, saw that. And the Mexican government is not happy about that.
And you can understand why. It's free money, right? I mean, it's a welfare program to their economy. Am I getting it correct? It used to be 15%. It's going to 60%, something like that. Yeah, the remittance. I mean, it's well over 50%, if I remember correctly.
So you're going to start seeing people driving across the border with cash.
I would bet on crypto.
Crypto is a good one.
Yeah. So we may see increase. I don't think it'll drive. Take your pick: Bitcoin, Ethereum, what have you. I don't think it'll drive those prices up because it's going to be a trade. You got to have a shared account. I buy a certain amount of Bitcoin. The family on the other side of the border immediately sells it, turns it into pesos. So I don't think it'll drive anything there. But that does bring up an interesting avenue, stable coins. This could be stable coins could be the savior of our debt problems in the short term. Because stable coins typically buy treasury bonds. They need something that when you buy a stable coin, it stays equal value. It's like buying a dollar. Okay. But what they do to do that and generate revenue for the company is they go buy treasury bonds. Well, if they legalize stable coins as a reserve, in other words, I could say I have $200,000 in stable coins in an account somewhere, and I could use that as part of a down payment, collateral for something. That's going to drive a lot of demand in the end for treasury bonds.
Do you follow Matthew Pines at all? Do you
I don't know
he
who
is?
that is.
Yeah, he's one of the great crypto thinkers. And matter of fact, it's so prescient what you just said, because he said basically the same damn thing this morning on X, that stable coins as a means out of short-term debt crisis. And I'm butchering it, but it had something to do with those things, which is way above my pay grade. But Will Parker is on. Chad Ray is on. It says, "Oh, threesome this morning." That's right. We're a throuple here on American Warrior Show.
It's a no judgment zone here. Okay.
That's right.
All right, Chad. No
I'm
judgment.
a little slower than the other kids. Could you explain what a stable coin is?
Sure. It's a coin that's stable.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right. I like it.
So what it is so if you buy, say, Bitcoin as an example, it goes up or down in value based on the market action, right? A stable coin is designed to maintain its value as, say, one fuller coin is worth $1. Hence, it's stable. That's it.
But it's still a tulip at the end of the day.
If it's linked to a dollar, the dollar value can go up or down.
It will, but those two things stay together, which is the point. So the dollar value, you're correct, can go up and down, but if the dollar appreciates in value, your stable coin would move in the same direction, same magnitude.
So one tulip is the same as $1 US. So no matter what the
right, but now if hyperinflation hits, and now $1 can buy, or $10,000 now buys what $1 used to. Your stable coin is just taking a hit.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Correct. So to take that a step further, let's say you're getting paid in stable coins, right? Well, your income would change with that the same way your dollars would. And this is the working theory behind the Fed coin, the central bank digital currency, which is different than a stable coin, because the stable coin is not issued by a central bank; it's issued by a company. And then, if you're gonna do the stable coin thing, you got to look and see, okay, how much are they actually holding for how many stable coins they're putting out there. Buyer beware.
Yeah. Will Parker is on coin number 800. Hope you're doing well, my good friend. Ed is on. Says, good morning, gentlemen. Coin number 2062. Ted Leonard is on coin number 1461. All is well. Yep. Back to the show. So hopefully it made a little bit of sense, but like I said, I think it's still tulips, but maybe time will prove me wrong. Hopefully
we will see. At one point the Federal Reserve note was the same thing, right? And it's held on for a long time. So we'll see what happens. Rich, you want to read this one off for us from the Supreme Court?
Yeah. No right is safe in the new legal regime the court creates, states Sotomayor's dissent, joined by Justices Elena Kagan and Miss Brown Jackson. I can't pronounce her first name. Sorry about that, Justice. Quote, today the threat is to birthright citizenship. Tomorrow, a different administration may try to seize firearms from law-abiding citizens or prevent people of certain faiths from gathering to worship.
Yeah, well, first time. I mean, let's go
into this a little bit more.
Okay, awesome.
As to what SCOTUS, all the stuff that come out, and really, it's all about winning. If you're a conservative, there's a lot of good stuff in here for you. But to her point, the decision does imply with regard to birthright citizenship and nationwide injunctions. And I don't know if you've looked into this much, Dr. Fuller, but basically it implies that the injunction should potentially be limited only to the specific plaintiffs and not a blanket thing. And sometimes, whether it's braces or whatever it is, we've enjoyed that when there's an injunction, everybody runs out and scoops these things up. Well, now it's saying it's just going to be regarding to the plaintiff, and lots of stuff here.
Yeah, I mean, in the short term, yes, that's great. Okay, we're not having, in my mind, the judiciary has become overpowered, and we've talked about this before, because the legislature is largely abdicating their right or their role in governance. So this can be a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, it is a little silly that Hawaii, an activist judge in Hawaii makes an injunction and it impacts some hunter in Maine. So yeah, I see the point there. What worries me is the additional balkanization of our laws. You know, we're continuing to fragment things. So now you're going to have a situation where there's an injunction in Hawaii, California, Massachusetts, and New York, but not anywhere else. So you, as Joe citizen, can be perfectly within your rights and covered under federal protections in Virginia, but you drive to Maine to visit your sainted grandmother and you get pulled over in New Jersey, and now you're in federal prison because you didn't know the law. And of course, as we all know, ignorance of the law is no excuse. The problem is we're fragmenting things more and more and more and more and more. And I get it. The Supreme Court's trying to get this under control, and I think it needs to get under control. I don't know what the solution is, but I think that, you know, we're in an era of precedent setting left, right, and center. And, you know, it makes me nervous. It makes me concerned for where does this end up? What's the eventual end state?
Exactly.
Well,
and Jeff and Scott are watching. Guys, remember the first rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club. We'll leave it there.
Absolutely. Well, the first thing to Dr. Fuller's points there is it reminds me a lot of concealed carry laws. You know, for us commoners out here, you know, you drive from one state to another, and I mean, there were a number of online resources where you could look up and see where you had reciprocity and so on and so forth. And you know, it was a pain. So kind of some of those on the left, they're going to have to deal with this. I'm going to be like, yeah, welcome to the party, pal. You know,
exactly.
But I mean, it's now true with drug laws. It's true with weapon laws. It's true with immigration laws. It's true with, you know, so many things where you have to know what the rules are. Voting, right? Well, you're a convicted felon. You can vote here, but you can't vote there.
Yeah.
You know, we're a nation of laws, all right. We're just a nation of a Gordian knot of laws. And look, we have attorneys that do this stuff, and that's their whole life. It's not my whole life. It's not your whole life. But I'm expected to know all these laws and all these areas everywhere I go. It gets a little, to me, it just says, well, there's one more reason not to travel, right? I can learn the laws in my own little bailiwick here. But do I know the laws if I drive to Washington? Do I know all the gun laws between here and yon?
Can we talk about that? Because, you know, you bring up a great point. In our closed group, we just had a member the other day said, I'm going from, I think, Iowa to Washington, D.C., never been there before. Can y'all help me with the laws and how to stay clear of that? And there's a lot of chat going on in that one. But yeah.
Yeah, and then you also have within jurisdictions, let's take California, my native state, you know, very anti-gun as a state, but you'll have county sheriffs that perhaps are not. You know, shockingly, the entire state is not Los Angeles or San Francisco, right? There are vast swaths of the state that are rural, you know, they're very rural, and they have the same values that the rural population in Tennessee have, or the rural population in Wisconsin have. And, you know, so maybe the sheriff doesn't enforce in your county, or he hands out concealed carry permits left, right, and center, and he hammers you for simple possession of marijuana, and he hammers you if you're an illegal. And you go to the county next door, and well, that's not the case. You know, and all of those are flip-flopped. And then you go to the county next to that, and two of those are flip-flopped, and one is not. How confusing does that get? How do you operate in that? Intending to obey the law, right? You're not a criminal. But this is the problem with tightening laws and passing more laws and creating more laws, is the tighter you grip that fist, the more sand slips through your fingers. And today I was a law-abiding citizen. Tomorrow I'm a felon because you passed a law that I was unaware of, or I drove through a county that I didn't know this was the case, or I crossed into North Carolina to go grocery shopping at the nearest Sam's Club. And, you know, I got an offender bender, and now I've got a gun with too many bullets in the magazine, or it's black, or it's, you know, it's pink, and oh my God, we can't have that. My cousin's visiting from Mexico, you know, it's really getting a little out of control. And so this latest law, I think, is a ruling by the Supreme Court, is an attempt to say, look, knock it off. You know, we've talked about it on the show before, where activist judges are just trying to hamstring activist prosecutors, right? There's no downside for them to file, I don't know, a bunch of felony charges against a former president in the hopes of preventing him from running for the presidency next time. You know, so I think they're trying to get this under control. I don't know that this is the right way. If this is going to, and time will tell, we'll see.
Well, let's take this, Dr. Fuller. Will, could you read that? And Dr. Fuller
Sure.
or Will, could you address this? What do you guys think?
It says we're seeing an injunction by fiat or lawfare from the Democrats as Trump is enforcing the Constitution and federal law.
Yeah, I mean, lawfare is a thing now, and I hate to break it to those that may be very, very big Trump fans, but he's just as guilty of it now as the last administration was.
Well,
He's
the
just
genie's out of the
acting-
bottle. You think
Right.
he's not going to use a weapon that was left laying on the table?
Right. And we predicted this on this show years ago. You're setting precedents that the other side is going to pick up, enhance, and shoot right back at you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what worries me now, is because the precedents that the current sitting president is setting, imagine these things in the hands of Gavin Newsom. Okay. Right. It's great when our guy's in charge, but it's not so great when the other guy is in charge. And I say that regardless of your political leanings. If you're on the left, what's going on right now terrifies you. If you're on the right, what's going on right now should terrify you, because it's going to happen when the guy on the left gets in charge again. And the guy on the left is going to get in charge again. It's going to happen.
Yep.
And then what you're going to see is the guy on the left picks up, to Rich's metaphor, is going to pick up that gun and is going to say, well, I'm following the same precedent that was set by Donald Trump. Just like Trump has been saying, look, Doge is a precedent set by President Obama.
Yep.
As a way of sort of armoring it against a left-wing attack. It's coming, folks.
And Doge even goes back to Clinton. Clinton fired 375,000 federal workers, did it in a much more orderly way, as you expect from a more professional politician. But he did it.
Well, he did. And I think the optics of the way he did it too, like he brought out pallets and you could see the bureaucracy and everything. And, like, my God, stare at this thing. This is a behemoth. This is Leviathan that's strangling us, not those.
And we've talked about on the show before that President Trump can do these things that he wants to do. He just needs to package it right.
Yes.
So that he doesn't, and that's long been his problem. His biggest problem is he does what he wants to do, but he does it with a great FU on his forehead, which, for a lot of people that are fed up with the political process of the last generation or two, it's great. It's refreshing. It's like, oh, thank God, someone's kicking over the cans. The problem with that is, as we've seen, every misstep is going to be fodder for the other side. Every little thing can be interpreted and spun to help the other side. And a lot of times it prevents you from doing what it is you want to do.
Sure.
I think he's just like, hey, I'm speaking to the 80%. The 20%, they're going to hate me regardless. I could say, everybody gets a free puppy and a pizza for credit. I hate puppies. I mean,
and I think we can thank Hillary Clinton for that being the new normal in the political arena, because as soon as she came out and described Trump supporters as being a basket of deplorables, she in essence said, I know that 40% of the population is not going to vote for me.
Right.
I want my 40% to show up at the polls. I want them to come, and they're going to be invigorated because I've said these things. And now I just have to fight over that middle 20%. And that's the new norm in politics. It's not a matter of let's get everybody on board. I mean, Ronald Reagan, when he won over Mondale, he took every state except for District of Columbia and Wisconsin.
It was 3 electoral votes.
Minnesota. He's from Minnesota.
Right. Yeah. Mondale's hometown, right?
Yep.
I don't think we're going to see that again.
Never again.
I just don't, because they don't care. They've realized, look, these elections are determined by 3-5%.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Well, and now you see so much more, rural versus urban as well. And you look at any of the electoral maps, you guys have seen them as well, in the blue and the red. It's so fractured now. Going back to your earlier point about how, you go from this area to that area. Well, you can pretty much look at the electoral map and get a pretty good idea whether or not you can carry a gun there.
Good point. So speaking of laws and elections and consequences, my goodness, folks. So if you've been asleep under a rock or something, you didn't know, Cuomo got his ass kicked in the Democratic primaries in New York City. And this is going to be, I don't see any other way for him not to be the next mayor of New York. And if that doesn't scare you, you're not paying attention, because over the weekend, Zoran, whatever the hell his name is, doubled down on his plan to target, and this is on his website, folks, whiter neighborhoods with higher taxes, and says billionaires shouldn't exist. And that's, that came out just yesterday. I watched that interview and my mouth was on the floor. What about you guys?
Can you imagine if someone on the right said the opposite?
I'm going to target blacker neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine the uproar and from the three of us as well?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't know what it is with the left. They get, I don't know what you want to call it, some sort of privilege that they can say stuff like this and their base just goes,
Actually, they go like this.
Yeah, that's true. They do. Little golf clap.
And they show up and vote.
That's right.
Yep.
It's I take no pleasure in it, but I remember when Trump ran the first time, and I told my friends, I said, look, don't worry about this. I said, he wins. You need to worry about what's coming in the next several elections, because if he wins, he at the time, recall, he was considered a far right kind of outlier.
Yeah. If
he wins, then the other side's going to see that and go, okay, what we have to do is go further left, and then we'll be able to win. And now this pendulum has swung so wildly out of whack that we're getting this running for a mayor of New York City. And remember, if he gets this is a launch point for a presidential run.
Yes.
Right? I mean, we've had how many former New York mayors have run for president? This puts him on the national stage. He's already on the national stage, but I mean, this really heightens his appeal. And if he wins on this platform, this is in larger part a test bed.
Yeah.
If he wins on this platform, we're going to be living with this sort of extreme left philosophy. And what's going to be the reaction on the right? It's not going to be to head towards the center.
Right.
Now, speaking of that leads into Don Bothwell's comment. It says, a lot of us voted for Trump because we wanted someone to kick over the anthill. Now we're disappointed that he doesn't seem to want to stomp on the ants. There are no consequences. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm in that camp sometimes. I got to be completely honest with you. I'm kind of pissed off that there hasn't been more accountability, but maybe it's coming after the midterms. I don't know.
Based on his first term, lock her up with Hillary and all that stuff, and then nothing happened.
Just bombast.
I'm guessing there'll be a whole lot. I mean, have we seen Epstein's list yet?
Nope.
We haven't seen any of that. So, talks a good game, but that's about it. So
what's this, Will?
So this is from the Times, so not rightwing.com. Why millionaires are planning to escape from New York. I love that that you added there, brother. That's awesome. So the gist of this is, be careful who you run out of town. Okay. So the top 1% of New York City taxpayers, the top 1% paid 48% of the taxes.
Did y'all hear that? The top 1% paid 40% of the taxes. And these are the people that he doesn't think should exist. And he's going to tax them into oblivion. So get ready for, I'm looking forward to it, because the price of real estate around here is just going to go through the roof.
Yep.
Thank you.
And
there's Zoran.
Careful what you wish for, Rich, though, because the people that are going to be buying that property are not necessarily the people you want for neighbors.
True.
Yep. They'll turn your area from red to purple into, light blue. So
I'll be found dead in a pile of brass. No,
there you go.
Just jokes, guys. Just jokes.
Yep. Yeah. What's Alan Kelly said?
Hold itself together long enough for you to die of old age. That's
right.
That's the point we're at now, guys.
Sure.
Alan says, I wonder what Zoran, whatever that name is worth now. And if he gets elected, what wealth he accumulates and where he propels himself. Like, oh yeah, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. I saw a headline last night. I can't remember where, so take it for what it's worth. But apparently he went to some $60,000 a year private school for his high schooling. So yeah, he's not some commoner who has scratched his way up through the system. And
he's a working class communist.
Exactly. So
what's this one there, Dr. Fuller? What does he say? Ted say?
I wonder what Zoran is worth now. Oh, I'm reading
the Ted comment.
Sorry. The effort required to legally hold former high-level positions accountable is extremely difficult. Witnesses flip-flop, facts must be solid. And to his point, I mean, he's right, but to his point, we've talked about it here as well, there are laws that protect people, especially in federal employment. And a lot of folks aren't aware of that fact. So you see, well, I don't know, let's take the director of the FBI. He comes in, we're going to fire this guy, we're going to fire that guy, we're going to fire the other guy. Well, the SECs around the FBI, they're in the SES pay banding within the federal government. They don't have a lot of the protections once you get into the SES level. So very, very few of them have actually been fired since he took charge. What they are told is, look, you've been called to see the director. And if you're the SAC of Chattanooga and you get a phone call that says, hey, it's Friday afternoon, it's 4 o'clock. The director wants you in his office 9 a.m. on Monday morning. That's a message.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's a message. And as a matter of fact, the SAC here in Charlotte recently got that phone call and retired. And that's what people do. Because if you're a SESer and you're in Seattle, your kids are in school, your wife has a job, and the director can simply say, oh, look, you can either, get out, or you're going to be here at headquarters in 2 weeks. Well, that's a significant impact on your life. And these are people who are, they're in their 50s and they don't necessarily have to put up with that. So a lot of them will just say, you know what, deuces, I'm gone. So you're seeing a lot of people just leave because they don't have to put up with it. They just retire out. So you're not seeing a lot of people get fired. So firing people is hard. And prosecuting people is hard. But telling you as a voter before you vote that I'm going to prosecute those people you don't like, that's easy.
Cost you nothing.
Cost me nothing. I can say that all day long. And then once I get in office, I can say, well, the facts weren't there. And well, he got off on a technicality, or I can just say nothing and move on to the next crisis. Given the voter memory lengths that we have in this country. Like, oh, did he say that? Oh, yeah, I remember he did say that. But Beyonce's got a new album. So.
She does.
Look at the monkey. Look at the monkey. Look at the monkey.
I'm out. Exactly. Look at the monkey.
Yep. Well, and the way the news cycle is, they're not going to hang on to it. And there isn't going to be any real accountability there from the media. They'd rather just move on to the next shiny object, which really comes back to us, the population, right? So one thing I want to throw out there, and it dovetails into some stuff we're going to talk about here shortly, to the New York side of this. So basically, for these very rich people, high income, I should say, because there's no wealth tax there yet. Basically, it's a 50x, right? So 1% is paying about 50% of the taxes. Even if just 10% of these high income earners leave, that's going to leave about a 5% hole in New York City's budget. That'll leave a mark, especially when we tie it in with the next area we're going here. So, be careful what you vote for.
Yeah, and when they leave, they don't necessarily just leave and take the stuff in their closet. They very well may take their company with them.
Yes,
and
many have
jobs. That takes employee, all the taxes that you got off that company. Remington has left the state of New York, for example. Correct.
Well, and it to the taxes point, it's not just the income taxes, because in New York City there's a city tax, property taxes as well. Because when they leave, they empty out buildings, and suddenly you have more buildings on the market. The value goes down. Other people say, "Hey, I want a new assessment," and the property taxes go down as well. So it'll cascade.
And oh, by the way, now we have this big building we got to fill. Let's find another employer. What employer is going to say, "Yeah, let me subject myself to that"?
Yeah.
What's the value added? What do you do for me in New York City? What does being in New York City do to attract me and my company?
And to that point, Zoran, or however his name's pronounced, has said, even if you move your business out of New York City, if you do business in New York City, he still wants to be able to tax you as though your business is there. Yeah. So
California tried that stunt a while back with taxing military members. If you did 20 years in the service and 5 of them were in the state of California, wherever you retire to, 25% of your retirement income is now subject to California state tax. And they got away with that for 4 or 5 years before the courts shut them down.
Wow.
Well, I mean, let's talk about this real quick. And I talked to Will about it last night. I meant to put it up here, but I didn't. Here in Tennessee, there's no state tax and comparatively very low property tax. Because of that, our fire chiefs make, $71,000 at the top end, $89,000, right? But in Los Angeles, you've got what's his name here?
$500,000, whatever it is.
Yeah, John.
He can't get by on $500,000.
John Getchis, who's a fire captain, second class, made $801,389 last year. $800,000 freaking dollars. This is insane, folks. Yeah. Now, why do they have that? Well, that's because the LA has insane property tax rate of almost twice the national average, and California as a state having the highest top marginal individual income tax rate, along with the highest statewide sales tax rate. So what pisses me off about this, and Will, you can talk about the 90% thing you uncovered yesterday. I think it was in Denver. This is what they're doing with the tax money. It's not like you're getting better services. They're just paying everybody these. Why should a fire captain need to make $800,000?
Well, he doesn't need to, but I can give you a pretty good idea why it happens. It's the same reason Democrats will talk nice about federal employees. It's a voting base.
You know, and these people are brainwashed that live there. I mean, Mike and I teach some classes in some very blue areas, and I go up there and they're like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, I pay $16,000 a year for my 1/16 of an acre lot. I'm like, it's insane. What could you do with that money with your family if it wasn't being stolen from you? No, but we get good stuff. I mean, you know, for that I get, you know, and then they start yammering about nothing. I'm like, yeah, I get that shit too.
Well, that's just the property tax. Now, what's the sales tax up to out there now? 15%, 12%, whatever it is. Yeah, you know, and you pay that on every single nickel you spend.
Yes,
you go buy gas. What are they paying? $6 a gallon?
And to that point, I believe it's today. California, if it's not today, it's within the next week. California has a new gas tax, adds another 65 cents a gallon.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so anybody who thinks that doesn't drive criminal behavior is not paying attention.
That's right.
Right. Yep.
The more you drive people down, the higher they have their cost of living. Some people just aren't going to make it. Yeah. They're just not. I mean, when you have to choose between my kids eat this week or I get gas, well, then I don't get gas.
Right.
And at some point, some of these marginalized folks are going to pick up a gun.
Yeah. It becomes a math problem, right?
The people that can move are fleeing the ship, you know, and then anyway, Don Bothwell said, but the weather's nice in California.
It is. It's a beautiful place. The only problem is it's in California.
Yeah.
It's absolutely breathtaking. But that's just it. How do you ruin paradise? You do it with this kind of bullshit right here. Edmund says, here's an interesting question for Dr. Fuller. Going back to the 1950 Security Act and laws against communism still in effect? Question mark. The person running for New York City mayor seems to be a Marxist communist. He is a member of the party. So yes.
Yeah. So I don't know that they're still in effect, but they're just not being enforced. You know, who's going to prosecute him? A left-wing liberal prosecutor in the city of New York? It's just not going to happen.
Right. Well, and to your earlier point about the laws and the jurisdictions, there's part of the problem right there. You know, you've still got something on the books, you know, like, you know, it's the law from 1826 that women's dresses must be at least down to the ankles or whatever. It is for a regular guy like me who's never, you know, worked on your side of the badge. It's like, it's a labyrinth. I'm just like, whatever. I'll just basically follow the rules and go with the flow. And I can't get it.
Yeah.
You know,
and look, our legislatures, you get elected to federal office at, you know, House or the Senate. Nobody cares if you're out there hacking laws out of the system, right? If you're not passing new laws into the system, you're not getting any props. But if you pass the new, you know, Wood-Brown Road Act, well then, okay, you're doing something positive. But if you come out and say, hey, look, in the last year, I took out 236 outmoded laws, people go, okay, yeah, but I mean, I need a bridge in my backyard, or I need you know.
Right. Wasn't
that
no
one of
Dr. Fuller? Wasn't that one of Trump's platforms at one point that for every new law that comes in, you got to take one out or something like that? I misunderstand.
That died fast.
Okay. Was it law or regulation? In his first term, he took a lot of regulation out. And I will
knows it, right.
And I will argue that regulation is way more draconian than laws, because many of the bills are written that, you know, here's the bill that will become law, and regulations to be determined by the administrator. And I get to live some of that, and it's not fun.
No,
you know, it's got the power of law behind it.
Right. But it doesn't have the debate of a law. It doesn't have the adversarial system to get turned into a law.
Correct.
It doesn't go through all the ostensible checks and balances before it's implemented.
Absolutely. All right, so back to this. So now this one, speaking of Trump as a disruptor kicking over the anthill, this one could be quite impactful to all of us. And this is the J-Dog, Jerome Powell, chairman of the Fed. His term is up May 26th of next year. No, May 16th of next year. And typically about 2 to 3 months prior to that, whoever the sitting president is will name his or her nominee for that post. Well, Trump isn't a big fan of J-Dog and vice versa. And so Trump's talking about naming his appointee as early as possibly next month. That would really undermine Jerome Powell, to say the least. So basically, at that point, Jerome Powell's a lame duck. Doesn't matter what he says anymore. And the markets.
You're talking about how the markets respond to what he says. Is that what you're saying?
Let's say J-Dog comes out and says, you know what, we're going to hold rates steady at 4.25. And the appointee comes out and goes, you know what, as soon as I'm in office, they're going down 2%. What's the market going to react to? I'm going to react to what I know is coming next June.
Exactly.
And
but
so
is there a confirmation for that guy though?
There is. It's advising consent. There's a vote in the Senate, but I can't remember a single time somebody didn't make it through. There's a lot of grandstanding, of course. What's that?
We're in a new paradigm now.
Well, that is a true statement. Yes.
He's got the patina of Trump on him. They're going to fight it tooth and nail.
Yep. And the few folks that are out there really lobbying to take over for Jerome Powell they're going to do what Trump wants. But that's no different than Yellen did what, Obama wanted, and Bernanke did that's just the way it is. No president is going to nominate somebody that's going to do the opposite, right? Of
course. Yeah.
So that part you'll hear a lot of grandstanding about, but that's just the way it is. So the ones that are out there already saying, yep, we're going to drop rates because, as Trump has opined, and he's correct, it makes the national debt harder to service. The flip side is if you lower rates significantly, we're going to long for the days of 9% inflation because it's going to come back with a vengeance. So we'll see what happens. Also, we got this whole, to that point too, the big beautiful bill. They're not cutting anything. They're figuring another $4 to $5 trillion in debt net out of that. That one's interesting. That could be a show in itself as far as that goes, but we'll see if see what actually passes there, because there's a lot of back and forth between the House and the Senate. As an investor, somebody who follows the markets, this could put everything on a big pause until, May, June of next year. If this really becomes a public back and forth. So it's something to keep an eye on. And when I say it could put the markets on pause, they're not going to just sit there flat. It's going to be a very volatile time, because Powell's going to come out and do this or do that, and the other guy's going to come out and go, yeah, I'm undoing that next June.
Well, let's take on Michael Gentili's question here. Doesn't low interest rates stimulate investment?
They do. Absolutely. No two ways about it.
Yeah.
So
this sounds like it's just an additional indicator of chaos in government leadership, right? I mean, if you're a nation state actor looking at the United States with ill intent, this just plays right into your hand. Just more fragmentation at the top. Now it's fragmented, is reaching into one of our big pillars, right? Which is our finances, our monetary advantages that we have on people. I mean, that's a bad look.
It is. It absolutely is.
What does this do for the midterms next year if he gets who he wants as the Fed chair?
Well, if all of a sudden there's a lot of money printing, whether that be in QE or lower rates or whatever the exact method used for that is, you're going to see the stock market take off. You're going to see housing do very well. I mean, can you imagine if we went back to 3% mortgages, what that would do to the housing market?
Oh, yeah.
That'd be great. So it all comes back to those midterms, I believe, and trying to set up for a President J.D. Vance as well. Also, lowering those rates will make the national debt serviceable again. Because right now at these rates, it's unserviceable, especially if we add another 4 or 5 trillion to it. So it all comes back around to that.
I feel sick every time I hear that.
I remember getting
Dr. Full in through the nose, out through the mouth.
Yeah. I remember being apoplectic when President Obama almost doubled our debt to
Mhm.
what, 16 trillion?
Oh yeah.
Oh, for the
Long
halcyon
for those
days of
days.
Taylor.
Yes. Yep.
Pocket change. You can find that in the White House couches.
Hmm.
Along with the cocaine that Hunter Biden left there.
Well, and you know the thing is, you know, we go back to whatever point you want. I think it was under Bush the debt doubled under his 8 years.
Mhm.
Obama did it again. Trump was on track to do it the first time. He didn't do it because he only got 4 years first time around. Biden was on track to do it again. He only got 4 years. Trump will probably be on track to do it again, but he only has 4 years. It's the way the system works. The continuing devaluing of the dollar. Once you get to that point, there really is no choice if you want to keep the game going, because about 25% of the GDP is government spending. If they cut back, yeah, it'll be a huge recession, and that's why I don't think the Doge thing will ever really go anywhere, because it can't.
Mm.
Well, but it sounds good. Right?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, think of all of the great sound bites you got out of Doge.
Mhm.
Oh, we found this and we found that. And how many times did we see Mr. Musk on TV talking about, oh, we found this malfeasance and this malfeasance? My question to you then, gentlemen, is how many indictments have we seen based on that? How many arrests?
The
0.
same number as we've seen names on Epstein's list.
Yeah. So you have USAID. You know, we've all hadn't heard of USAID a year ago. Now we all know what USAID is, or at least we've heard of it. We still probably don't know what they were supposed to be doing. Hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, right?
Mhm.
Well, you steal that kind of money. I'm thinking if we're going to put Skittles away for 5 years for armed robbery for stealing somebody's $100 bill after they came out of a bank, why are we not chasing down the people that stole this? Or how about what was the one that just came out? Oh, in the last 75 days of Biden's administration, they stole $93 billion, $93 million, or whatever it was, just got poured out the door. Well, if you found it, there's a money trail.
Mhm.
Somebody said that was okay. I mean,
Yep.
look, I couldn't use my little FBI issued government credit card to buy gas to put in my G ride without 15 people seeing that money get spent, right? And if I did it in the wrong car, I did it in the wrong place, I did it at the wrong time, I got a phone call. Somebody was looking into it. Well, for the love of God, that was $50.
Yep.
My government credit card was green, and my Capital One was green. They look just
I
like,
see the
right?
mistake coming already.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I go to Lowe's, and I just bang, got a box of nails and left. And then Monday morning, I'm like, can we see you in here, Gunny Brown? I'm like, sure. What's going on? I'm like, you want to talk to us about this this nail purchase you did? I'm like,
Monday morning.
oh Jesus,
3
yeah, Monday
days
morning.
later.
I'm standing tall, and I'm an E7 in the command, and
Yep.
and I'm like, guys, look, and I showed them the gap. My bad, I'll pay the freaking thing off today. Yeah, get that paid off and then come back in here. I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
So, but to your point, and this is another thing that the left media did. They're like, yeah, but he only saved 50 billion this week. I mean, Doge, really, is it worth it? He only saved 50 billion this week. I'm like, God almighty, man. If he saves a nickel, it's worth it.
Well, and the 50 billion, I mean, that's real money to regular people. I mean, look if Biden would have added $50 billion to, say, VA services, right?
Mhm.
Oh, look at what he did, right? Well, let's move some of this money around. Right.
And look, not punishing people for that kind of blatant criminal malfeasance sets a new standard.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, what have you told people?
Mhm.
Oh, you can do it. They might find it, but they're not going to do anything to you. Don't steal $100. Don't buy a bag of nails.
Mhm.
Buy the nail factory.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Steal a little bit, you go to jail. Steal a lot, nobody cares.
There's got to be moral hazard. And that's where, you think I ever screwed up the green card thing again after getting, I mean, just the way they looked at me. Of course, nothing came of it, but just, I don't want to be under the laser beam like that.
Yeah.
20 years in the FBI, I carried 2 wallets.
Yeah, there you go.
For that very reason, right? My bureau credit card was buried in that second wallet. So if I pulled that thing out, it was a determined effort, right? Because
Yeah.
stories just like yours, Rich.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and it's, the little guys get held to account, and the big guys, to your point, they just do whatever they want because they know enough people, they spread enough money around, they've got enough connections.
For a nation of laws, it's just 2 sets of laws. That's all.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah. Craig Holland is on from the UK. You guys, I tell you what, Northern Ireland over there is about to erupt into civil war. And
Not a good
media's
time to
not
be
showing
Romanian
it.
in Ireland.
It is going bananas over there. They're not real happy with what has been allowed to take place. And anyway, we'll see where that goes. But Craig is on. Thank you for being on this morning. Gold members in the house. Glad to have you, sir. Let's take on Don's comment because I love it. Can someone read that for me, please?
Sure. Congress has abrogated their fiscal responsibility by just shoveling the money to NGOs and letting them disperse it without oversight. Kind of like the regulations, right? Because it's, you know, we put the money over there. They said they were going to do these great things. And why wouldn't we do that? Oh, it went to my PAC. Who knew?
What?
Yeah.
Well, we have no oversight of how they spend the money.
Clutching your pearls.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. How did that end up there? How weird.
So,
hey, Derek, thank you so much for keeping us on point there. He says, actually, 3 people who work for USAID have been charged with fraud. One has already pled guilty, and may they rot in prison for a decade or more to send a message. Don't do that, folks.
yes, absolutely.
My guess, having read that, and that's great to hear, but my guess is they were the functional equivalent of Oliver North.
Exactly.
Right? You know,
Right.
A lieutenant colonel at the Pentagon was in charge of this huge operation. Okay, these 3 guys were in charge.
Well, it's just like the banking crisis, the housing crisis in 2008-9. All that went on, one guy got charged.
Yes, that's right.
And he was a low-level guy at, I think, Lehman. I mean, he was nothing.
I thought it was Credit Suisse, but
it could have been. I can't remember for sure. So, yeah, I mean, that's the only person that got that. What's Michael say there? It's a good point.
He says, we all recognize the level of corruption. What do we do about it? Well, sadly, nothing at this point. I'm so disappointed. And Dr. Fuller and I will do a show on the FBI. I don't want to speak for Dr. Fuller because he is a retired FBI agent. That if he was be comfortable with that, but I have some very strong feelings about what the director has done and not done thus far.
I'm happy to talk about it, Rich.
Okay, fantastic.
I mean, we've had conversations in the past where we've agreed and disagreed, and I personally, I'm glad to have that. I like having conversations where people can politely and respectfully debate an issue from both sides and look at it. And then, ultimately, we want the viewer to decide and make up their own mind and do their own research and just use us as one data point in that research process.
Yeah. Thank you to the 17 folks watching us live. Don says they punished the monkey and let the organ grinder go. Wow. Yeah. Love that.
Well, to your USAID point, this is from the New York Times, guys. So this is, the belly of the beast, so to speak, right on the left. Even the agency's supporters acknowledge they could use reform. Much of the $35 billion it managed last year went to Washington-based contractors. So let's even just say much. Let's say 50%, $17.5 billion, half their budget, whatever. Pick your number, right? And went to these Washington-based contractors, not directly to communities in need of overseas or in need overseas. So it's easy to say corruption, inefficiencies, right? Is crazy.
Can I tell you one of the big problems I had with this? And Marco Rubio brought it up. It's like USAID needs to roll under the State Department. I need to have control of those funds because a lot of times what we're doing in country X, USAID is pumping money in that undermines everything we're trying to accomplish. So this USAID money and grant money, whatever it is, should be just another tactical rung toward a strategic U.S. objective. And yet when those organizations are fighting against each other, it's just bananas. Craig says, if I could get this on real quick, our government are suppressing information in Northern Ireland so it does not spread to the rest of the UK. And Dr. Fuller says, if it turns into an anti-Islam riot across the UK, there will be a very real problem. Yeah. And they're suppressing it worldwide. I mean, you have to hunt to find the information, the riots in Northern Ireland. But
take a moment. I have not searched this information. I am completely unaware of what's happening.
Basically, it's anti-immigration riots, but it's of course anti-Islamist because they're. And again, I don't want to paint Islam with a big wide brush, but there seems to be these grooming gangs, these rape gangs, and their culture clashes with Western culture. And it's the Northern Ireland folks aren't putting up with it. I mean, that's where the Scots Irish come from. That's our home territory, Northern Ireland. I feel at home there. Every time I go to Northern Ireland, I'm like, love you guys. They speak just like us. It's absolutely bananas, you know.
I like Northern Ireland. I like it a lot.
I do too.
I just have a general problem with it. We see it here in the United States, and we see it overseas now, where people from there come here, and they come here. Can you hear me at all?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yep. Wherever you were at, whether it was California or Syria, you wrecked things. Things went sideways, and rather than fix it, you flee, and you bring all the problems that caused your issues back there to here. And so, I'm an immigrant. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not coming to settle. You're not coming to integrate yourself in the existing society. You're coming here and you're bringing your problems with you, and you're not trying to fix them.
Yep.
You're trying to replant. You're a settler. You're not an immigrant. Look, if you want to move, I'm an immigrant to South Carolina. Okay, I left California 30 years ago, and this is where I've settled.
I thought you were going to say California.
I thought you were going to say carpetbagger, Rich.
I kind of am a carpetbagger, and I'll embrace that.
He is.
I get a little miffed when the people around here call me a Yankee. But the reality is, I didn't come here and start flying an LGBTQRSTUV flag out front. I'm not trying to say, look, this is the way we got to do it because that's the way we did it in California. I'm like, hey, how do we do it here in South Carolina? All right. Now, I still put sugar on grits, but that's about as far out as I get. It drives my wife absolutely bananas, but that's about as, because I like it here. I like what this place is about.
Exactly.
And so I want to be absorbed into this culture. I don't want to be a pill that this place has to swallow.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Will Parker says, when there comes here, here becomes there.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine immigrating to Russia and demanding that they print all of their paperwork in English and use our alphabet and demand that they kowtow to you? I mean,
you can give it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck with that.
It won't work too well.
No, it won't.
Michael Gitelli says the revelation of USAID connects the dots of why Clinton's global initiative dried up overnight when she lost the election. Yeah, that should tell you.
Yeah.
That should tell you a lot. To your point about South Carolina, Nova says, good morning, Nova. Glad to have you on. He has coin number 1960. Says, figuring out how to best invest in my young son's future has been like navigating a minefield. I no longer feel I can reasonably predict what their future, i.e. education, employment, financial, and even national geographic security will look like with any degree of certainty. And that certainly is what we try to do here on our Monday morning shows, Nova, because we're just aggregating data and trying to figure it out as best we can to keep our members and viewers up to speed.
Right. But I think that's one of the added values of the American Warrior Society is, you can't predict how things are going to go. I mean, could we have predicted where we were 5 years ago, where we are right now? I mean, no, but what you can do is prepare, right? Do I know that I'm going to be present for someone's grievous injury today? No, but I have a first aid kit that I can treat some pretty bad stuff that I carry around with me, right? Do I know if I'm going to be a victim of violent crime today? No, but if that happens, I have a skill set that allows me to, invoke various options. And I think that's what the AWS brings to its membership. Yes, our Monday morning shows, we talk about these projections and look what's going to happen, but it does filter down to your neighborhood. It does impact you, and how you can then best prepare for it starts with information and knowledge.
For sure.
Razmik says, anyone want to talk about Afghans of Bachi-Bazi that defines that religion? And I'm pretty sure that's the boy love thing.
It is.
I became aware of this. Well, I had a female major, a JAG officer, a Harvard grad, who was on a board I was on. And we were talking on the break one day. And she's like, yeah, when I was in Afghanistan the first time, we're like, yeah, ma'am, can you go down and talk to General Kazemi? He's got an issue going on down there. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, well, it's just inappropriate. And so he goes down there and he's got a little boy handcuffed to his desk and he's got, makeup on and all this stuff. And he's like, he can't be in here. Why? This is I use him for breaks and stuff like. You can't do that, and they just did not understand that we cannot allow you to just rape this boy here in the international headquarters. It's not going to work out. Let's see here. Craig Holland says the gang in Ireland were the Romanian gangsters raping young Irish girls. Whew.
Yeah,
may they burn in hell.
Yes, absolutely. So, all right. So I think we got USAID under, and this is coming from the left now, right? So there's starting to be some realization here. This one, this ties back into what Trump is doing with budget cuts and cutting money going to states. This is going to reorient things. It's going to be really noisy. Who knows if it'll survive the next election cycle? But when we get to the end, I have a very definite opinion about it. So how much federal money goes toward all state and local governments? This is from USA Facts. If you want to look this one up, guys, there's some good charts in there. And I'm trying to keep the show under 3 hours here. So we could read this whole paragraph, but basically what it comes down to is the amount of federal money that went to the states. It started ramping up during the 90s and early 2000s. It spiked on the housing crisis and then maintained that level and then spiked again on COVID. In other words, it only goes up. And so in reading more in this article, the states put in for grants, I believe is the right term, from the federal government for these things, but it's a competitive grant writing system. Mm-hmm. So in other words, it's whoever can hire the best writers. This is where somebody who's been outside of government, other than dealing with the aftermath of it, it just boggles my mind that we have to competitively write grants. I mean, give me a break.
And a lot of times those grants, you'll write them and it'll be a 5-year grant, let's say. So you get X amount of dollars every year for 5 years, and it'll filter down to various organizations within the state government, let's say. So you might end up with a police department that gets $100,000 a year under some sort of a law enforcement grant. It goes to the PD, and they're like, "Wow, $100,000." It's a nothing burger to the feds, but to this department, they're like, "Hey, we can hire extra cops. We can get 2 more cops out on the road, or 1 more cop out on the road." Well, then when the federal government says, "You know what? No grants this year," it really puts these state and local governments in a bind. Okay. And it becomes a control point for the feds and say, "Hey, do what we want, or you better start extraditing these illegals. There's all these polka dot people from an island in the South Pacific we don't like. Get them out of here. And if you don't, we're going to shut off your money." And it bit Los Angeles County, for example, right in the butt here a few years back. It wasn't a grant. It was the money that the Marshal Service was paying for beds, for federal bed space. So for those that don't know, and I know you do, this, Rich, the federal government doesn't have a whole lot of federal jails, right? So if somebody gets arrested in rural Vermont by me, and I got to take him to a jail to house him overnight, I'm not a jail guy. I don't guard people. I don't have a cell to put them in, but there's a jail here. Well, the federal government, through the Marshal Service, pays for X number of beds. Every month, whether we use them or not, the sheriff gets a check. Okay. So that when I do show up with Rich Brown in handcuffs and I need to house him for a day or a weekend or a week, no problem. The federal bed space is paid for. Come on in, have a bed. Well, they're doing that in small towns and doing it in big towns. Well, it's a lot more money in Los Angeles than it is in, let's say, Rutland, Vermont. Well, then you had a sheriff out in LA that decided, you know what, we're not going to honor federal detainers anymore, and we're not going to, turn people over for extradition. And so the marshal heard that, and within hours, he's like, no problem. Made some arrangements. The next day, there's a line of freaking buses out in front of the LA County Jail. And they're like, what are you doing? We're here to pick up all the federal prisoners. Scooped them all out and said, we're done paying you. And within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they were broke. Mm-hmm. They were so dependent on that money that the LA County Sheriff had to come back hat in hand and said, look, we can't run our operation without this money. So guess who's in charge of that facility now? Is it the county sheriff or is it Department of Justice?
Yep. And that's the in my opinion, that's the root cause of the problem, right? I mean, Biden was going to cut off lunch money to school districts that didn't follow a specific social program, right? It's how we got seatbelt laws, right? Going to cut off your highway funds if you don't enact a state seatbelt law.
It's how we influence foreign governments. You know, we all complain about how much money goes to this government or that government. And I'm like, yeah, but we're in essence buying influence.
Right.
But when those foreign governments give the money to the sitting, I don't know, Secretary of State who's running for president, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
That's not buying influence.
Why would that be a problem?
Why would that be a problem?
So, the point of this whole long paragraph is it just keeps going up and up and up, and it's becoming exponential, just like other problems with money in the government, right? So let's dig into a couple of charts here and see just how much goes to the states here, okay? So if you look back 1980, about 15% of the state spending was coming from the federal government. The chart didn't go back further than that. I'm guessing it was higher before that based on the trajectory downward, and that was Carter, which will be a more central planning type administration. Came down under Reagan, came back up, moved around back and forth. It's come down some here in the last few years, but it's coming down off a COVID peak. So put a little asterisk by that. Downward movement prior to Trump starting to do what he's doing. And we're going to go through some numbers here to get to an end point. So bear with me a little bit as we clamor our way through these. If you go to the next one there, brother.
Okay.
So I found this chart very interesting to see the federal transfers make up between 19 and 39% of state government revenues. Highest being Alaska there at 40%. I think that has something to do with the oil and how that shakes out, but I'm not positive. Maybe if somebody knows, they can throw that in there. You will also notice that some of your more rural, in some cases, very deep red states use more, have a higher percentage of their budget as part of this. 25% is not uncommon. Both Wisconsin and Tennessee running 25%. South Carolina looks to be about the same shade there. So quarter of the state budget comes from the federal government. So when Trump says, hey, we're going to cut these funds to the states, you're looking at problems rolling downhill real fast. To the point, it didn't make the show here, but Iowa and another state I can't remember are both chipping in about $600 million each from their reserve funds just to make the budget this year with what the federal government is cutting out. This could also turn into a political problem for Trump because some of the deepest red states are going to be the most impacted. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all goes here. But the problems are going to show up fairly quick. And people are not going to be happy when they don't have these services. Most of it goes to Medicaid and food stamp programs, whatever that SNAP, I think that's what it's called now. I'm still old. Call it food stamps. So it's a significant amount of money. So these states are having problems, and these problems are happening quickly.
And if you're in a state that's already not making budget or just blowing budget a little bit, to suddenly lose 15, 20, 25% of your expected income, that's shattering.
Yes.
Right.
And they're going to go looking for that money somewhere. Fill in income tax, sales tax. Sales tax usually isn't palatable because it's a regressive tax. Those who earn less pay a higher percentage. They pay the same percentage at the cash register, but as a percentage of their income, because they spend most of their income, it's a greater percentage than someone who's higher income. So, we'll see how that shakes out for these states here. So, can you go to the next one there, brother?
Yeah. Just real quick.
Yeah.
Craig mentioned that looks like the UK is buying 12 F-35s at a cost of God knows how much per unit. And, 12 F-35s, they've got, according to the old Google Foo here, about 670 aircraft with their most advanced one being the F-35.
It puts them on par with the Iranian Air Force, at least the Iranian Air Force of 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, their most technologically advanced fighter is, a version of the F-5 from the 60s. So
Great looking airplane, though. The F5.
Beautiful airplane.
It is a sexy
So,
airplane.
and by the way, Craig, for the record, thanks for the cash. We appreciate it. We need it.
Yes, exactly.
So in fiscal year 24, 1.1 trillion was provided by the federal government to state and local governments. That was 16.2% of federal spending. Now, I think this is important because, if let's say Trump goes in and he's cutting half of this. Well, you just cut 8% of your federal budget. That's going to help with your deficit problems. That cutting is also going to make the bond market more interested in owning your debt. No different than if a person cuts their personal spending, a bank is going to be more interested in lending to you. Same idea. So this is where Trump is coming from. I believe on this is it's a quick and easy way to cut your deficit, or free up money to spend somewhere else, which is realistically what will happen. So you make good political points with it, and it drives it back more local, which is in the end, I think, going to be a good thing. We're going to dig into that on the next slide here.
All right.
So
You may go ahead and pull up the YouTube.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll talk a little bit here. This was a local news coverage of Denver's budget problem, not a state, obviously, but a significant city. And they're having a lot of angst out there right now about losing these federal funds and how it's rolling downhill. Rich teased it earlier. Listen for a percentage on this as you're going, and you just run it through about 1:45 there, Rich. After that, it's just a bunch of hoo-ha garbage.
I think what's funny here is like layoffs are happening this year. Whatever decision we make, layoffs are happening at a large scale, right?
Yes, otherwise we would not be here. They are absolutely happening, and they're going to be substantial.
You're just hearing there for the first time the city of Denver acknowledging mass layoffs. This at the city's career service board meeting this afternoon, where the board members are now considering new rules for laying off and firing tenured employees.
Denver 7's Brandon Richard shows what the changes will mean going forward and is listening to the community as they voice their frustrations.
Well, last month, Mayor Johnston said that layoffs would be likely because of this budget deficit. But today, city leaders said those layoffs are not just likely, but they will happen.
They're going to be substantial. I don't know numbers because they don't know.
On Wednesday, Denver city leaders acknowledged that layoffs will occur this year as the city struggles to deal with a projected $250 million budget deficit.
There's no service that we can really cut. And 90% of our budget is personnel. So there's going to be layoffs.
They say it's too soon to say how many people will be laid off, but they hope to streamline the process when that.
You can stop it there, brother.
When it comes to determining.
So how much is their
$250 million?
How much of their budget is personnel?
Was it? Can I give it away? 90%.
90%.
90%
is personnel. What do they do?
Not services. Personnel.
Not take care of the streets. 90% is personnel. So, another way this could play out politically is unemployment rates going up. And we're going to see that with a lot of the federal layoffs that happened because they don't count as unemployed until the severance runs out, which will happen September, October, I believe, for much of those folks on the federal side. I'm not sure what'll happen with the cities and states, how that'll work. So, okay, that's gee whiz information. What can we do with it? Like Dr. Fuller was alluding to, so the good, lower federal deficit, assuming they don't just turn around and spend it, which is probably what'll happen. Okay. Eventually lower federal taxes. I mean, in a perfect world, you would cut the spending, then there would be excess. Right. And then the taxes would come down. Right. But that money, if the city of Denver, the state of Wisconsin, wherever it is going to maintain the same level of services, the money's got to come from somewhere. So higher state taxes, higher local taxes, higher sales taxes. Personally, on the long term, if all that shakes out in a perfect world, which it won't, I'm all for that because it's more local control. If you live in the city of Denver and you don't like the way something's getting done, city of Denver doesn't really answer to you. they're getting a good chunk of their budget from the federal government. So they keep the feds happy. You know, a good chunk of the money still rolls, to Dr. Fuller's point about the LA sheriff, right? So if that money is coming from more local, now I can go run into, you know, or go down to Joe's office or run into my state rep Joe somewhere and be like, hey, what's going on with this? It makes them answerable to that.
Yeah, but
Which is the way this.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's right. Go ahead, bro.
The problem that Denver, for example, is running into. I was out there not too long ago doing an executive protection gig. Places, it's not the same Denver it was 20 years ago, but they ran with the federal lead as far as we're letting all these people in, we're taking in, we're a sanctuary city, bring them on, come on, come on, come on. And the city was overrun when I was out there. And that worked fine when their party was in office. But now that their party is not in office and they cut the money off, well, now what are you going to do? You know, you've got a lifeboat and it seats 20 and you put 60 on board, and it's just not sustainable. So you're going to have to cut bodies. And when you cut those employees, you're going to impact services, right? You fire 20% of your firemen, well, there's going to be an impact. You fire 20% of your police, there's going to be an impact. And this is what we keep harping on around here: is you're setting precedents and you're not thinking long term. And you've got to think long term.
Very true. But government is not good at that. So
They're thinking in terms of election cycles.
Exactly right. Yep. And so the bad, higher taxes down the board. It's going to happen. But in a perfect world, of course, the federal taxes would come down. That's not going to happen. The big beautiful bill is just, you know, maintaining the tax rate from the Trump tax cuts first time around, not actually cutting any taxes. They were scheduled to go up, so you get to maintain what you got. Low-income states are going to be hit hardest, I believe, because, you know, if you got a low-income state, you can raise your sales tax from, say, 5 to 10, but if they're not spending money to begin with, then it doesn't really matter. And, you know, we see this, people vote with their feet. You know, I've got a well-known play for folks live in Southern Washington is you live in Washington where it's 0 state income tax, and you drive across the border into Portland and buy your stuff where it's 0% sales tax. You know, it's the people. I mean, it's the old people can tell you what their priorities are. Show me where you spend your money, and you'll show me your priorities.
Exactly.
So, depending on the state now, it could be a threat to state pensions as well when these budget shortfalls hit. And we're looking at Illinois, because their pension has just been a excrement show for decades and been put off, and it becomes viable because they put unrealistic expectations on the investment returns there. Illinois would be one of the canaries in the coal mine on that, for sure. Also could lead to some social strife, and I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. You know, you start cutting all these services. There's the obvious one: you cut the police. Obviously, you know, Summer of Love 2.0 is easier to happen that way. But also there's social strife within. You know, you cut the food stamps and can't feed the kids. To your point earlier, Dr. Fuller, you know, somebody's just going to pick up a gun.
Yeah.
So will not happen immediately, of course, but that's what we're setting up until those cash flows are somehow, accounted for. Those services are going to get cut.
Right. And of course, everybody that gets caught up in this is not going to turn to the gun. They're not going to become criminals. But there are enough people that are on the correct side of the edge that if you move the edge, inevitably, some of them are going to feel as though they have no choice. And, we've talked about it how many times on the show. You know, the price of gas goes up 15 cents a gallon. The three of us are in a position to say, ouch. Mm-hmm. Okay. Some people are not in that position. Some people are now in a position where they've got to no longer drive their car, or they have to be very judicious about when they drive their car, or even if they can own a car. Mm-hmm. And some people are in a position where crime becomes a viable alternative for them. Mm-hmm. Or the criminal that's out there, he's supporting one baby mama, and then the second baby mama loses her job. Now I got 2 baby mamas. I got to up my criminal game. Mm-hmm. So the repercussions and the ripples that come out from these things are extensive, and they do come down here to Main Street.
Yep. So
Yep, well said.
we'll see how this shakes out, but it's in a perfect world, it makes the state and local governments more efficient, and drives more control back to local, right? Because if, let's say in Denver's case, the video we watched, suddenly Denver has to raise their taxes. Well, now they're accountable to their locality, which is really how the system was set up from the beginning. It wasn't all supposed to go to the federal government and come back. So we'll see how this shakes out.
Yes, we will.
Well, and that's a perfect segue to once again advertise for the HREC Environmental Course this fall in East Tennessee, November the 17th to the 21st. You're going to get to train with some of the top trainers in America, including Dr. T.C. Fuller, Justin Carroll, and Mr. Will Parker, who is on. And we'll be teaching law self-defense clinic, as well as some chemical munition stuff to keep you safer. Got a lot of good stuff on this. Click the links in today's show notes if you want to find out more. And when I saw this last one you put up here, Will, this is a quote from Mark Twain. It says, "Sometimes I wonder whether the world is being run by smart people who are putting us on, or by imbeciles who really mean it." And I'm like, I think I just saw a meme about this. Here's a pro-Palestinian music festival. And here's, of course, a Palestinian at a music festival, which is the Nova, where they slaughtered hundreds of folks just out there enjoying a morning rave. So again, I don't get it. I do not get it.
Yeah. Well, they're disconnected from the reality of it, right? They have I'll call it a fantasy of, kumbaya, and we'll all, and they just don't understand the realities.
Yeah, I find it's a lot easier to get my head around if I just let go of the need for things to make logical sense. Or even if I let go of the idea that it has to make sense to me. Yeah, because it just doesn't. It just doesn't in my limited worldview.
Yes.
No, I don't. Like you said, you just have to go. These people. I don't know if they're just ill-informed or they're stupid. I mean, there's some videos of these Gaza activists leaving their Mercedes back in Franklin, Tennessee, and other beautiful cities, and trying to go to Egypt to get into Gaza. And they're like, they're parting us on a bus and we're getting deported. And I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
That's
Welcome to the party,
works.
pal. Yeah. The reality is not what you envisioned.
Right.
It's not.
Yep. Crazy stuff.
Let's see. Rasmic asks, "Is there, what's the best city in the United States if there's any left?" LOL. And Nova says, "It's not in upstate South Carolina. Check out Georgia or Tennessee." Yeah, Tennessee's a pretty good place, guys. But we're all full. I've heard Montana's full too.
Yeah. Yeah. Moose out front should have told you it was closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I think we're going to see a sea change here. With if the federal government money dries up, we're going to find out who's too dependent upon it, and we're going to see some upheavals in state elections, and some people are going to find out real fast that basically their state was living on federal welfare.
That's exactly right.
So, and and the states can't print the money, guys.
No, Daddy can, but states can't.
Yep. So, and to your point earlier, Dr. Fuller, that pendulum swings back the other way. This money's going to come flooding back in, and then that's going to cause problems too.
Yeah, tsunami of money.
But it's going to be the guy that runs the next time for president is going to say, "Hey, look, this is terrible. Life has gotten worse for you. Has your life gotten better over the last 4 years? It hasn't. Well, vote for me, and I'm going to reinstitute this money and that money, and I'm going to take care of this and that." And that's what people want to hear, and that's what they'll vote for.
Absolutely. And you know what? If that comes to pass the way we're thinking, they'll be right. Right? The guy on the left, when he says, "Is your life better?" the answer is going to be no. Yeah. Without, being able to understand the bigger picture there.
And Michael Gentili says, "You are correct. We are replete with virtue signalers here in Franklin, the most expensive zip code in Tennessee and one of the most in the country. Most recently changed their vehicle registrations from California. It's disgusting. And it's going to destroy Franklin. I'm sad, but it's an absolutely breathtaking little town."
Yeah, it is. It is. So,
anything else, gentlemen, before we let everybody get on with their Monday morning?
Nothing for me, sir.
No, I'm all good. Enjoyed the conversation, gentlemen. Thank you.
Yep, it was wonderful. Thank you.
You want to take us out?
If you aren't convinced at this point that the fight is coming, you haven't been paying attention. be ready.